Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make groovy, funky, disco house in the style of Never Dull and Purple Disco Machine. As usual, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI presets, all of that from this video. It's available right at the top of the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, thanks so much guys, and let's get started. So, first sound we have here is this guitar, which sounds like this. So this is just a simple guitar that I played in. I played it with this guitar. My beloved Gibson SG right here. Love this guitar. But yeah, so I played it in with that. It's a simple, just like a little guitar riff. It's meant to kind of accentuate the chords. Like, you know, we have this chord progression playing. And then, you know, it's like you get bow, bow, and then while that's ringing out, you just hear this. It's kind of like playing off of that rhythm. So yeah, and then for effects on here, I've just done a few things. You can see I played this as what's called a DI, so literally that just stands for direct input, meaning I just plugged the guitar into my interface. I have a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, that's what I played it through, and then I've got it going through this amp here. So we've got this on the clean setting. I also have the cabinet here, so this is meant to sound like it's like a live guitar amp, and it really works well when you have a direct input guitar like this, because you can kind of give it that vibe. Like, part of this sound is having a lot of texture and character and vibe to your sounds, so you can't just have like a clean dry guitar. You know, you need it to have that, like, when you hear the guitar, you need to kind of communicate the feeling with the notes and with the sound, if that makes any sense. So that's what we got there, and then I just have a bit of chorus and some reverb, so just giving it like a bit more space. The chorus really gives it that like old school kind of 80s disco sort of feel. And then we have just some drum buss to kind of beef it up a little bit. This really helps to give it that last little like bit of fullness to make it really stand out in the mix. And then finally, I just have a compressor, which is side chaining this to the kick. And yeah, that's it for the guitar. Like I said, really simple, just like a little riff I played in, but it adds a lot to the track. The next thing we have here is the vocal. So what this is it's this little vocal sample. Just someone going, ah. And then I'm just taking that here, and then here I took the exact same, it's just that same vocal stab, but the second note, you can see I pitched it up +5. So the first time it goes, and then it goes, so yeah, simple, but it's just like a bit of call and response with the different notes. And this is really similar to with the guitar, where like it's kind of playing off of the rhythm of the chords, where we get like, you know, it's very much like all kind of working together like this. For effects with this one, we just have a bit of reverb. You can see it's a pretty strong amount of reverb. This is very influenced by Never Dull. He does this a lot in his tracks, like just having like a little vocal stab like this, and then it just rings out for a super long time because of the reverb. It creates like a lot of vibe in your track, because you're hearing that, that note. That's playing over top of your chords. So you see what I'm talking about? Like, it's not just the fact of having like a vocal stab. This is also kind of like a drone in the background of the mix as well. And then we have just a bit of drum buss to beef it up as well. This also helps to bring out the reverb. Like, if you're trying to make one of these really long reverb sort of vocal stabs like this, a lot of times if you just do reverb without any saturation afterwards, it can kind of just not come out right. But the saturation really helps to bring out the reverb and make it so you can get that long like reverb pad the whole time. Then I have a compressor, just side chaining this to the kick. You know, that's important. You really need this to like fit into the groove. You can't just have it like playing super loud. It needs to kind of be bouncing off of what that kick's doing like that. And yeah, and then finally I just have a high pass filter just to cut out the lows and make sure that this doesn't get in the way of the bass or any of the other elements of the track. And then we have this Rhodes, which sounds like this. So here are the chords. This is actually a pretty basic and straightforward chord progression, and then I've just added some notes on top of it. So what's happening here is these are all major. I started at least with major and minor 7th chords. You can see we have F sharp minor 7, then we go down to B minor 7, and then it's that D major 7. And then another F sharp minor 7. So yeah, it's just kind of like this simple 3-chord chord progression. But then you can see I've added notes on top. So like with this chord and the second chord, you can see actually with the first one, I added these 2 notes on top. The second one, I added 3 notes on top. So it's like you're getting those chords on top of the major and minor 7 chords, like it showed you. And then here, like, it's those notes on top. And then that note. So what's happening is the chord progression, I'll just play that on its own too so you can really hear. Like the chord progression is doing one thing, and then the notes on top are doing their own thing, but that's accentuating the chord progression. So there's just the original chords, and then with the extra notes. So you can see how important those are. Like, it's not just having, like, you know, the major and minor 7 chords. That is this first step, but you have to take it a little bit further than that and add some extra stuff on top to give it that vibe and really make it feel unique in your track. For the sound with this one, I made this actually using this preset from Ableton, and then I just kind of tweaked it a bunch. Mostly what I did, to be honest, was there were a bunch of effects in here that I just went in and deleted, and I tweaked this limiter, I made this like a longer sound as well. So this is basically just meant to be like a Fender Rhodes piano. It's a very famous sound in jazz and disco and house and all that. I'm sure you are familiar with it. And yeah, this is meant to create that, but with MIDI. That's the kind of vibe you want, like this just sort of deep, smooth sort of chord like this. And using a Rhodes is definitely better in my opinion than just using like FM synthesis or something, because it's all about getting that classic sound, and the Rhodes will immediately call to mind the classic sound. So yeah, we've got that, and then that's just going into a bit of chorus and some reverb, so let's just give it some space. I have a bit of drum bus to beef it up. This really goes a long way because you want this to be really fat and really full. This without it. You can hear with it, it needs this to give it that last little bit of push. And then finally, there's just a compressor, side chaining this to the kick, and then I have this high pass filter. And yeah, that's it for the Rhodes. Then we have the kick. So this is a pretty straightforward kick. You can hear it's just like this really fat, punchy, almost like a bit clicky kick too. Like you can kind of hear that cutting through the mix in the transient of the kick. So yeah, really simple. With this style, you don't want to go too crazy with your kick, you know, just like a nice fat kick like this with some good drum bus or saturation, and that's really all you need. If you have the right sound, you're not going to need to use too much stuff. You know, if you find yourself using like 10 layers of effects to fatten up your kick, or however many, you know, usually even if it's more than like 1 or 2 or 3 different things, you want to just kind of step back a little bit and really consider, like, is this sample even worth doing all this saving to? Like, again, if you have a really great sample like this, it's gonna just fit into the mix properly, and then the little bit of saturation will give it that push, versus, you know, having some kick where you gotta do like, again, like 10 layers of effects just to make it audible in the mix. And yeah, then after that we have the bass line. So this is just following the chord progression. It's just playing the root notes. And then these notes where it's jumping up here are just octaves. Like if I push this down, you can see it's the same note, it's just an octave up. it's a really simple bass line, you know, it's all about just kind of having that chord progression and then writing a bass line using the root notes from that. You don't really want the bass line to jump around too much. You want it to follow with what the chord progression is doing, but then have its own, like, kind of feel within that. So that's why I'm going for octaves on most of these notes, because if F sharp works, F sharp and octave up is going to work more cleanly and better than, say, like A or C sharp or whatever other note I could think to try. It's best to just do octaves if you're really trying to just sort of support the chord progression like this. And yeah, and then for the sound with this one, I made this one with operators. So this is just these 4... You can hear just 4 oscillators here. Got 3 sine waves and then 1 saw 4 just to give it a little bit more harmonic content. And then I just have them on this FM algorithm where it's like set like that. So yeah, this is just, I'm pretty sure this was a preset that I tweaked as well, just to try to give it more of like a live bass feel. What you're really going for here is like a live bass sort of feeling. You could use a live bass if you want to, but I like using a synth and then kind of making it sound like a live bass, because this is tucked away a little bit more in the mix, but the synth is going to give you a lot fatter sound. So then after the operator, I have this amp and cabinet. So this is set up really similar to how I had it on the guitar. Again, it's just recreating like if we had a bass amp on this bass. You know, it makes it feel a lot more realistic. And then we just have a bit of drum bus, beefing it up, making it a little bit fatter. And then just a compressor side chaining it to the kick. And that's it for the bass. Again, super straightforward, just like a fat sound, a little bit of processing. And then I have the kick and bass in a group together. This is really important for the style. If I turn this off, you can hear... You hear how when I turned it on, it just has a lot more vibe to it, a lot more character, and it's a lot warmer and more full. That's the purpose of this, and this is really important in this style, because you really need to have that like warm feel. You know, big part of this isn't just like the music theory or like anything like that. It's really like the vibe and how everything is fitting together sonically while playing this cool musical stuff. Like the cool musical stuff is one aspect of it, but that's only one aspect. You also have to get everything to really like fit together like this and feel really warm and full. So doing little stuff like this every step of the way, like putting all the low end stuff in a group, putting all the percussion in a group, you know, making sure like everything is getting fattened up with some type of saturation, that's what's gonna really like communicate what you're trying to communicate in this style. And you can see I don't have that much saturation, just a little bit. Kind of goes back to what I was saying before. If you already have really solid sounds, you're not going to have to do too much, but then the little bit that you do is going to make a huge difference and make everything really big. And yeah, then after that we have the percussion, which altogether sounds like this. So I called this group Percussion Loop. The way I like to think of the percussion in this style is kind of as if I'm making like a loop like you would hear in a sample pack, you know? It's very animated, it's very colorful, there's a bunch of moving parts. It's not just like one hi-hat and a clap. It's like everything is really grooving together. And again, it just feels very animated, and that's what you want to go for, and that may not always be the most natural thing. You know, if you're just programming some drums like... That's not really going to give you this feel, but there's little things that you can do along the way that are going to make this kind of come together to really feel like alive like this. And like a loop and not just like, you know, hi-hats and claps, but like something really interesting that's adding a lot of energy to the track. So what it really comes down to here is just kind of like the different levels of layers that you have. So like I'll start with like the ones that are right up front, which would be like these 3 elements. The hi-hat and the cowbell and the snare. These would probably be like the main 3 things that I'm hearing. So that's like the first layer of detail. You know, we would start with like, you know, like in this case, for example, I just started with the hi-hat. Just straight, just... That's usually how you would have the hi-hat in the style, you know, it's kind of like as if someone's playing it in live. Then I added in the snare, which is just the snare sample. And then I have a clap on top of it to kind of give it a little bit of stereo width and a little bit more like... And you can also see the clap is pushed back a little bit, so it's happening a little bit before the snare, so you kind of get that like flam effect. So I had those 2, And then those are just going through a bit of drum bus as well. So we started with these, and then you bring in the cowbell, which is really simple. Just adding some extra notes in there. You know, you have this is already a nice groove, but again, these are the basic elements. When you just have these, it's not got that same animated live feel like I was talking about. So then I added in the bongos. So now you can kind of hear a bit of interplay between the bongos and the cowbell. Like, they're not just playing randomly, but they're actually kind of playing off of each other in the groove. So that's the next step, is having things like this where they're kind of talking to each other. You have your cowbell and the bongos bouncing off of each other, and it works really well as on another level too, because we have the cowbell is in the high end, and the bongos are kind of more in the mid-range and low end. So you're getting that boom, boom. You know, that kind of feeling. You want that. And that's adding another layer of aliveness. Then we just have like a shaker loop. So then this makes it feel really live because there's actually something live being played in. So then this is like most of the groove, but you can hear it's still not quite as like alive and animated as we would want. So then I added these last two layers, which are this little background kick and then this sweep here, which sound like this in the mix. And there we go. That gives us the last little bit of impact, because now we have these percussions, which are all kind of up in the air. You know, it's all happening up here. But then the kick and that sweep happening like right on the beat like that. That kind of grounds it. And then that gives it that last little layer of detail. And all these are just really simple layers. It's just like a little kick sample, like this more drum machine style kick. I high passed that though, because obviously we still want it to be part of the loop, but I didn't want it to just sound like, yeah, you don't want to just have like a full kick playing when we also have a kick playing in another part of the track. And then the sweep is just this little like effect sound. So that just hits on the 3. So you get like, it's like boom. And there we go. And then those are those last two elements that are really going to bring it to life. So again, you don't want to just have like a basic. You need to have more stuff happening. And this is how you kind of have all these different elements playing off of each other to really create something exciting and animated. And like it's going to fit into the style. Like, again, with this style, I find the percussion, you really kind of just want to make something that sounds like just very colorful like this. And very animated. And yeah, and then I just have some EQ and a bit of drum bus on the group without percussion. So here's without those. And then with them. So it just gives it the last little push of like fatness with the drum bus. And then the EQ is just doing a little bit of a high end boost, just to kind of bring out some of that sharp high end in the mix. And yeah, so that is it for the percussion, and that is also going to be it for this video, guys. So I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file and samples, MIDI, and presets, all of that stuff from this video right at the top of the description. It's a great way to support me, guys. Every little bit helps, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.